Welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astro Portraits. I'm Ralph Demetrius, one of the astrologers. Today our portrait is of the city of Napa, California, which is coincidentally where we live. And I had first gotten interested in their chart back in 2014 when there was an earthquake, which really rattled the area. It was the first big quake that hit here in a long time. It was the first big quake in the Bay Area for 20 years. And it was called the Napa Quake because it took place just in the southern part of the county just above the bay and really shook the downtown and did a lot of damage. Happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, or 3:20 to be specific. But I looked at the chart then and it was very obvious in the charts. You could see the quake all over the charts. It was really powerful. But I looked at the chart at that time. I thought this is really kind of an interesting chart in many ways, partially because, many places in the country align their charts. They pick the chart. I mean, the chart for Washington, D.C., for instance, was very carefully calculated. The chart for the United States of America was very carefully calculated. 13 degrees, Cancer, right at the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Things were very carefully calculated. Most of the states start in Cancer, like the United States of America. Some do not. There's some in Leo. I think it's Hawaii is in Leo. And California is in Virgo. A lot of the towns in California are also in Virgo, are founded in Virgo, like the state. They really worked at aligning with that. There are some that are not. And Napa is one of those that is not. Napa is an Aries. Boy, is it an Aries. The sun is at 3 degrees Aries. It also has Mercury and Mars in Aries. Now, it was founded on March 23rd, 1872, within 3 degrees of the spring equinox. What they didn't know at the time was that the sun was conjunct Chiron. In fact, it's its closest conjunction. The sun's at 3, Chiron's at 10. They didn't realize it at the time. It was very significant in California's chart as well. It was not discovered until, I think, 1970 something. So it really manifested later. But Chiron has a lot to do with healing. And something people don't realize, and most people know Napa for wine, Napa was a big healing center. In fact, in the 1800s, the 2 biggest hotels in California were both in Napa, and they were at healing springs. There are hot springs. That sounds like Aries, fire, coming out of the ground. There are hot springs all over the county. And there were big hotels at these springs, famous hotels. Now, with Mercury and Mars and Neptune there as well, this is where it gets interesting. You see, Mars is in its most dynamic position in Aries. It's called the rulership position. It's a dynamic extrovert position. It's Mars kind of bursting with energy. When Mars is in a rulership like that, it makes all the other planets in the same sign with it strong. But the sun is already strong. You see, the sun in Aries is called the exalted position. It's like the best friend position. It's the honored guest position. So you have the sun and Mars, both in these extrovert dynamic positions. It makes Napa a very dynamic place. It's a place of creativity. It's a place of strong personalities, of a lot of energy. And if you live here, it really is true. The Chiron adds a certain sense of woundedness there. And it really does fit because there's a certain, what would you call it? A phoenix-like quality. There's so many times when Napa has been smacked down by events, either major earthquakes or big fires or big floods. I think as of 2005, the downtown had flooded from 1850, had flooded 21 times. And before they finally redesigned the river, right? Big disaster. And then you had the phylloxera, which wiped out thousands of acres of vines. It was a bug. And then right as they started recovering from that, Prohibition came in and shut down 150 wineries. And that went on for 13 years. So they have been wounded, and yet they have come back There's a very phoenix-like quality to the place. And they come back because of this tremendous energy, this willingness to kind of recreate themselves. With a noontime chart, and that's what we use for cities, it has Cancer rising, right? Cancer rising means it's a home, and it is. It's very much a residential city. It's a place where people come to make a home. What's interesting is that at the rising is Jupiter within 1 degree. Jupiter means a home for people from foreign places. And from the beginning, people have come from great distances to live here. In fact, many of the very important people who made Napa famous were all from someplace else. They were either from Germany, or they were from France, or they were from the Nordic countries, or, in this region, one was from Hungary. I mean, other places, and even still today, people, of the great majority of people I know in Napa, most of them are not born here. Most of them have come from other places. It's funny because people who grow up here may leave for a few years, but they tend to come back because it's a beautiful place to live. But they had Jupiter there. Now, what's interesting is they didn't know at the time, though the planet had been discovered, but probably they didn't calculate for it, was Uranus is also rising. And Uranus, conjunct Jupiter, is the marker of invention. Now, it's in Cancer. Cancer also relates to the making of food. Well, winemaking, and Napa has been very, very important in the innovation of technology related to the making of food and wine. There's been a lot of things related to winemaking that was thought up here by people from foreign lands. By people from foreign lands came up ideas when they got to Napa. One of them, for instance, was a Russian winemaker who, working with a man from Croatia, invented a whole bunch of technology working at a Frenchman's winery in Rutherford, in Napa County, right? Another person came up with a lot of inventions. Their family had moved here from the Midwest, but their family, they were first-generation Italian Americans. Their parents were all from Italy. They had come there and they invented things when they made their home in Napa. Cancer, rising, conjunct Jupiter, and Uranus. Boy, it's like so perfect in terms of describing it. Now, what's funny was you have Cancer rising, so you always want to know what's in the 9th house. Whenever you look at the rising, what's in the 9th house? Because the 9th house has a lot to do with what's going to benefit you. What's in the 9th house? Venus and Pisces. Venus and Pisces is also a dignified position. It's what's called the exalted position, the honored guest. It's very, very extrovert. It's about belief in love. It's about the belief of beauty. Well, Pisces also relates really strongly to wine and intoxication. In the 9th house, it has to do with enterprise, but it also has to do with, once again, people coming from foreign lands, dreamers coming from foreign lands to grow grapes and make great wines. Boy, that describes Napa, Venus and Pisces. So you look at these different things. I mean, the Jupiter in Cancer, that's the exalted position for Jupiter. So you have all these like major external dignities, Jupiter in Cancer, Venus and Pisces, 2 exaltations, the Sun in Aries, an exaltation, Mars in rulership, the most extrovert position, right? You have Saturn in Capricorn in the 7th house, the rulership position, the responsive rulership position, what we call the feminine ruler, okay, in the 7th house. What does that say? It says the ability to make solid, long-lasting partnerships. The 7th house is partnerships. Saturn is about the rules. Capricorn is about long-term planning. Solid. It also relates very strongly to agriculture, trees, vines, that which ages, something like wine, which ages. Okay? They also make balsamic vinegar here. Not a lot, but another thing that requires aging. What's funny is that the one place where it really connects to California is the moon. The moon is at 18 degrees Virgo. California is at 16 degrees Virgo. It's sun position. So it's a reflection of California. It's funny, that moon to sun, that's something to look for in partnerships and couples, that one person's sun is the same as the other person's moon. It's like the perfect kind of position because they reflect each other really comfortably. And Napa reflects California. It's funny too because one of the reasons why Napa is so successful is the extremely bright sunshine. And one of the reasons why it's so bright is because the sunlight bounces off the water, off the bay, which is to the south, and reflects back up into the sky, and it creates really bright sunshine. I call it double sunshine. The term for it on the Weather Channel is abundant sunshine. That's what it is, abundant sunshine. They have like 6 different words for the sunshine because it's so bright, but it's what makes great wine grapes cool. Great wine grapes need really bright sun because grapes actually don't process sunlight that easily compared to other fruit. It also has a lot to do with working people. The moon in Virgo very much respects the working people. And the thing that's funny is there's a lot of very wealthy people in Napa, but there's a lot more working people, working class, because remember, this is farm country. Wine country is farm country with really good restaurants, but it's farm country. There's a lot of people who work among the vines, who work in the wineries. It's, wear blue jeans and, drive pickup trucks. That's a big part of it. And in the third house, that's, you might call your colleagues, the people who you associate with on a daily basis. It's the moon in Virgo. It's working people. And people respect that. People, appreciate that here. There's not a lot of distance, you might say, between the different economic levels because of that. So that is Napa, California. Most unique place, a beautiful place, as would be expected with Venus and Pisces. It's a beautiful place, a very dynamic place, as you expect with Mars and Aries. A very caring place, and a place that is fantastic as in hospitality, which you would expect with Jupiter in Cancer. And a place where partnerships endure, as you would expect with Saturn and Capricorn in the 7th. So, I hope you found that interesting. Come back and see us on Tuesdays. That's when we do our portraits. And come back and see us on Fridays when we do our weekly forecast. You can find those at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube. You can also find them at planetarycalendar.com, where you can also, of course, find your planetary calendars. Until next time, be well.